Today we're going over Gary Paulsen's book, Hatchet. Be discussing some of the many good points of the book and a few of the problems, including if somebody did what the main character did, they would die. Hi guys, welcome to the Doug Shoe Bushcraft channel. It says on the cover, the best-selling classic survival story with more than 4.5 million copies sold. So a lot of people bought this. I know a lot of people love this book. Also, it was required reading for around 5th grade. I think maybe it still is. And a lot of people have fond memories when they were a child reading this. So I just want to say it's not my intention to insult the book or put it down or harshly criticize it. I'd like to start with the good points. There's many good points. I'm just going to go over a few. The story is entertaining. It's a lot of fun. I read it, really enjoyed it, which is the purpose of a novel. So very well done. Good job writing the story. And it opens up discussion about survival topics. He goes over a number of things. The main character tries certain things and gets a lot of things right. In my opinion, a few things he got wrong. But even so, we can talk about those things. And it's important to discuss it before you thrust into it. And the main character in the book is even trying to remember, what TV shows about a person in the wilderness or a movie did I see? What did the hero do? Good stuff. All right. What else? In the book, it goes over very well the importance of maintaining a good attitude. And one of the main character's mentors, I forget if it was a teacher or who it was, but one of his mentors had told him about the importance of maintaining a good attitude, not applying it to surviving in the wilderness, but the main character does. He tries really hard to push away negative thoughts and focus on positive things. And he's not always successful. He has some dark battles. And I think that the book really does very well at showing how tough it can be psychologically. Being stranded alone way out in the wilderness and feeling like you're eaten alive by mosquitoes and feel like you're starving and lonely and often afraid. It can be tough. But still he tried to maintain that good attitude. And if somebody did survive an ordeal such as that or similar to that, the good attitude would be top of the list of why he did make it through. And if somebody gives in to the negative thoughts, depression, likely not going to make it. And also the main character, he sets his mind to survive. This is going to be hard work. I'm going to have to go through some hardships. It's going to be tough, but he works hard to affect his survival. That's a good point. And last one I'm going to go over today is he finds a natural shelter. He thinks about building a shelter. He comes to realize he's going to need it to survive. And he thinks of building one right here, but then he thinks to himself, well, maybe I should scout around and look for what's the best area to build it before I start putting in this work. As it turns out, he finds a natural shelter. It's like a natural rock overhang near the lake where he is. And then he works to build a wall to make that natural shelter even better. And that's a very, very good technique. He was in a plane crash. So he's beat up at first and working as hard. He starts to get over that a little bit. He doesn't have any food to start out with, so limited energy. That's a common theme to survival situations. So the first thing you can be doing before the sun goes down, I mean if it's daylight, before the sun goes down, look around. And if you have limited motion because you're injured or sick or whatever, what's the best natural shelter that I can get to? And I get to it, I'm hunkering down. Okay, what can I do to make it better? So he gets that one spot on, in my opinion. So why would he have died? This is a novel, it's a work of fiction. But if it were true, why would the teenager Brian have died out there in the wilderness? Well, he was out there for 54 days. And it's really tough for someone to survive that long, particularly someone with no experience in those things. People are either rescued or they don't make it. And additionally, he made some bad choices. Some are discussed in the book, some aren't. First one I want to talk about is that he was injured by animals. A porcupine, skunk, and a moose. It's kind of unrealistic, even in 54 days, that someone would get attacked by that many animals. And being stomped by a moose, that's usually how they attack you. They stomp you. Can weigh 1,000 pounds, even more. The hooves are hard and sharp, and that could kill you right there. If not, the chance of dying from injuries, if just left out there unattended, pretty high. But that happened. Also, he was attacked by mosquitoes and other insects. He had so many bites, he's starting to get disfigured, or people have dozens or even hundreds and hundreds of bites. And people can die just from that. You can have an allergic reaction. Plus he's scratching the bites, they itch, of course, he's scratching them. That can open yourself up to infection. It's one thing if you're out for an afternoon, you scratch yourself and get first aid at home, or if you need it, you can go to the emergency room or something. But to be out there for weeks and weeks, that could have been it right there for him. And he found this shelter and he improved it, but then he's sleeping right on the ground. And I don't remember the book ever discussing him being cold, even in the summer. The sun goes down, it can get cool. And this is supposed to be northern Canada, right? So it gets really cool, even in the summer. I've camped out in Canada. Had a little Kawasaki street bike, a Kawasaki 440 Limited. And I had a sleeping bag, just a junk sleeping bag because I was a kid. I'm sleeping on the ground, but with a sleeping bag in August, right? I wake up, there's frost on me. Okay, so it's not going to be exceptionally warm for every day during the summer. You're going to get cold at night. And people can die of hypothermia and exposure in the summer, in the northern latitudes. Okay, so that wasn't mentioned. It should have been. He built this shelter. He should have built some sort of bed. You know, he had a hatchet. Put, you know, the name of the book is Hatchet, right? So cut pine boughs, put those down. Mentions a birch tree, so you can peel sheets of birch bark, and I'd put those on top of the pine boughs personally, just so I don't get covered with pitch as much. But do something, leaves, and build some sort of bed, which you didn't do in the book. And he's drinking lake water. And one of the survival experts, so-called, that wrote about this was saying he was drinking from a clear lake. Oh, a clear lake. No, it wasn't. Because the book mentions weeds, and like it was murky toward the edges, and a lot of fish. And the book mentions, well, beavers living in the lake. Okay, so fish need something to eat, so there has to be bugs, and there has to be frogs and other amphibians, and there's moose and deer, other animals coming to the lake, and they don't always poop and pee right there, but often they do. It's just their thing. They drink and plop plop. And of course the beaver are living right in the lake, and usually that's where everything goes. But to have fish in a healthy ecosystem, that means you have bacteria and parasites in there. You have to. It's part of the healthy ecosystem. As humans, we think, oh, it's bad, or city dwellers, or, I mean, I'm civilized. I mean, I have a well and clean water in the tap, or bottled water, right? So as Westerners or Americans, we're thinking parasites and bacteria are bad. they're part of a healthy ecosystem. So they are there, right? So supposedly he's drinking this 54 days. He's going to get giardia and other parasites. So if he'd just been out there a few days, that's one thing. The premise of the book was that he survived out there for weeks and weeks, 54 days, and he's not going to make it. And what tipped the scale to impossibility is drinking the lake water, because he's going to infect himself with parasites, he's going to get sick, he's going to be vomiting, he's going to have diarrhea, he's going to get weak, he'll be dehydrated and malnourished, because even if he can get the food and water, can't keep it down. And this is really tough on the body. It's not going to get better for him, it's going to get worse. How do I know? How can I say it? Well, he's going back to that same source, and he keeps drinking that bad water. So his body's fighting it. His body's trying to get better, but then he reinfects himself and reinfects himself. And he can only take that for so long. And plus, you add to that hypothermia, because he's sleeping flat on the ground. And also the injuries, infection. And the human body can only take so much. So long before the time frame of the book, he expires. I don't see any way around that. At this point, a lot of people might say, no, hypothermia isn't going to be an issue. It's not going to be a factor because he's able to make a fire. Well, here's the thing. Drinking the lake water continually for days and weeks, he's going to get really sick. And keeping a campfire going all night, every night, isn't the same as turning on your thermostat at home. It's a lot of work. Finding the firewood, and as he used up the local firewood around that permanent camp he had, he'd have to go further and further out. And it's just more work than a really sick person will be able to do. So it's a snowball effect here, and that's what would do him in. So what could he have done? I'm saying the choices described in the book, he would have died. What could he have done to give himself a better chance, or a chance, of survival? Well, don't drink the lake water, unless you have to. If I was so sick or injured that I couldn't find a better source, then I could dig a little hole, a little pit close to the shore, close to the edge of the lake. The book describes a sandy area, so that's where I'd go, and try to be patient. Let the hole fill with water. Try to be a little more patient, let it settle, the cloudiness goes away, it gets clear, and that should be a lot better source. But it seemed like he was mobile. At first he's all beat up from the plane crash, but it seems like he was mobile. So maybe drink the lake water at first if you had to, but as soon as possible, go looking for a better source. Should be rivers or streams or creeks feeding the lake. So if I walked upstream on one of these, there should be smaller and smaller streams of water going into that, and that could be a lot more clear, a lot more safe to drink, or should we say less dangerous. But ideally, if I can find a little stream coming right out of the rock, a spring, that can be even safer than the water people have at home. If you have city water, it's treated, likely does come from a lake, but it's filtered and treated in different ways. It has chlorine in it. Not a lot, but chlorine is essentially bleach, right? So that chemical is not good for you, in my opinion. And plus, it's coming through the city, through all these pipes, and how clean are those? I'm not sure. All I'm saying is, in my opinion, that spring I find in the wilderness could be a lot better water, right? But in any case, don't drink from the lake. Try to find the best or clearest water you can, like creek water, moving quickly, and the rocks are bare. They're not covered with moss and algae really. They've been scoured because it's moving so fast. It's not a lot of vegetation. There's no fish or frogs because it's up in the mountain somewhere, for example. That could be a lot less dangerous to drink. So that's one thing you could have done. Also, the premise of the book was that his plane crashed hundreds of miles away from where the search party will be looking for him. So they're never going to find him. I know in the book, toward the end, he finds a transmitter, and he uses that rescue transmitter to be saved, but he didn't have that at first. He didn't know he was going to be able to acquire that. So if I was in that situation and I'm literally hundreds of miles from where they're going to be looking for me, they're never going to find me. Likely, depending on the situation, I'm going to start walking, if it's possible. If I'm too injured or sick or whatever, that I can't travel that far, then try to travel to a clearing, if possible, and make some sort of signal. All right. But if I can, I'm going to try to self-rescue, most likely. And what could he have done? Well, there's a lake. There should be a river leaving the lake. So I'd follow that downstream, and likely it pairs up with another river, becomes larger, and becomes a larger river as there's creeks and streams and possibly other rivers feeding into it. And eventually should drain out into the ocean. And along large rivers, and particularly where rivers meet or where the river flows into the ocean, that's where you have a settlement historically. Just a good place for trade and for other reasons. That's where people started settlements, and they grew because it was an advantageous location, so now it's a city, typically. So you go downstream, down larger and larger bodies of water, and try to self-rescue. In closing, I'd like to revisit one of the topics in Paulsen's book, some really good survival advice. And I'd like to do that by reading from Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about these things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you learn and receive from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing, then the God of peace will be with you. So remember, the main character in the book chose to focus on good things, and he pushed negative thoughts out of his mind. They'd come. I mean, we're human beings. Negative thoughts come. But he really tried and worked hard to make the choice of focusing on good things. And Paul's writing to the Christians in the ancient city of Philippi, giving them that same advice. That's a good thing to do always. But I'd say particularly in a survival situation, that can help keep you safe. But then he goes on, and this is his closing in the letter, so this is important. And he says, keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me. So there's more, there's a lot more. This is a New Testament, meaning a collection of the words of Jesus Christ and his apostles. And there's a lot there, a lot that can help you in life. And God forbid you find yourself in an emergency situation or stranded out in the wilderness, a lot that can help you with that mental battle. So I'm recommending 2 books today. Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. Excellent adventure story, and there's some good survival advice in there, and other things are good topics for discussion. So a lot of fun too. Highly recommend it. And this particular edition, how it's translated, this is a New Living Translation, and for a new reader of the scriptures, it's really flows well. It's modern language. I like this translation personally, and they actually sell these at the Dollar Tree. That's where I got this one. In any case, that's my recommendation for you guys. I thank you for joining me. Hope to see you again soon, and God bless you.